Okay, this is the second time I'm reading Lawn Boy. I'm up to page 7. But before we start, I would like you to turn and tell your neighbour this. This is a comprehension question. Think about comprehending and understanding this story. There's going to be a lot of comprehension questions throughout. The question is, in the foreword, in the beginning of the story, what's the character's motivation for earning money? Turn and tell your neighbour, please. Okay, now here's a direct comprehension question. What is the mother's job and the father's job? Go. Okay, and third question is a thinking question. Why do you think the author has not named the main character? They haven't mentioned the name of the main character. Why, your opinion, do you think that? See if you can explain it and try and justify it in some way. Keep thinking, because at the end of this, I'm going to ask you to list the events that led Lawn Boy to begin his lawn service. So listen, his lawn mowing business. So think carefully, what are the events that led to him starting a lawn mowing business? A kind of warm or maybe settled feeling, like I was supposed to be there, and so was the mower, the two of us. Like it was a friend. So all right, I know how that sounds to you. We'll sit under the tree and talk to each other and read poems about mowing. That's not what I mean. But the feeling was there. Next, I found myself sitting on the mower, my feet on the pedals. I moved the throttle to the rabbit position. Remember? Rabbit and turtle. It had been on turtle. I pushed the left pedal down with my feet, and the blade underneath started whirring. The mower seemed to give a happy leap forward off the sidewalk, and I was mowing the lawn. Or dirt. As I said, we didn't really have much of a lawn. Dust and bits of dead grass flew everywhere, and until I figured out the steering, the mailbox, my mother's flowers near the front steps, and a small bush were all in... What do you think the next word is? I'll read it one more time. Dust and bits of dead grass flew everywhere until I figured out the steering, the mailbox, my mother's flowers near the front steps, and the small bush were in danger. But in a few minutes, I got control of the thing and I sheared off what little grass there was. The front lawn didn't take long, but before I was done, the next door neighbour came to the fence, attracted by the dust. He waved me over. I stopped in front of him, pulled the throttle back to kill the engine. Good expression, not stop it, but kill the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening. The sudden silence was almost deafening. I stood up away from the mower, my ears humming so I could hear him. You mow lawns? How much? And that is how it started. When it all began, it was simple. Our neighbour's house had a larger yard than ours, with what looked like good grass. No difficult corners, just a big square with a large elm tree in the centre. I mowed it. He gave me money. $20. Figuring that I used almost all the gas in the tank, about a gallon, which cost $3, and not counting the wear and tear of the mower, I didn't know how to figure that out. I'd made $17 for my work. It took 2 hours, so I made $8.50 for every hour. That, I was to learn later, was called capitalism. While I was finishing up that lawn, the next neighbour up the block came and said, "How much do you charge for you to mow my lawn?" Wow, another job just like that? I poked around in our garage and found an old 3-gallon gas can. I walked down to the service station or the petrol station or the gas station, lots of different words depending on which country you come from. I walked to the station on the corner, bought gas, another word, petrol, brought it back, filled the tank, and mowed the second guy's yard. And while I was doing that, a third man came and asked me if I could mow his lawn. The lawns kept getting bigger, and soon it was dinner time, and I'd done 3 lawns, and I'd made $60. And I had a small piece of scrap paper with phone numbers and addresses for 6 more lawns. Turns out the man who owned the lawn service that had done all the yards in our neighbourhood had run off somewhere, and no one knew where he was. A kid like me mowing their lawns was perfect. I lived in the area. I wasn't going anywhere, I suppose. Plus, I was probably quite cheap. Later I would learn that I had tapped into something called an expanding market economy. All I knew was that it felt good to have all that money in my pockets. That evening, I took a rag and I wiped the mower down and I parked it in the corner of the garage. And a little admission here, I patted it on the top of the gas tank. As I bent over, the wads of bills cracked in my pocket. Bills? Money. In America, they call them bills. Don't think we maybe in New Zealand call it a bill, a $1 bill or a $2 bill. Not $1, they're coins now. They used to be bits of paper. Anyway, I digress. I'm trying to help the people that don't speak English at home as well. So the note or the bill of paper, which is the money. Thanks, Grandpa. Is Grandpa really there? Thanks, Grandpa. I never really knew my grandfather, but the mower seemed tough and friendly. Maybe it was like him. He had worked on it and used it, and it was nice to think of him as part of it. Then I went inside. But a strange thing happened. My parents were getting food on the table, and as we sat down to eat, my dad said, "There's a new film about astronomy on at the IMAX theatre. Be great to see it." He sighed, and I knew he was thinking about our budget, the amount of money we have to spend. And there I sat, my pockets full of money. And I could have said, "No problem, I've got money, and I'll earn more tomorrow, and more money the day after." But I kept my mouth shut. I could have said all those things, but nothing came out. Somehow it didn't feel right for me to be the one offering to take us to the movies. If I did that, wouldn't Dad feel worse? Wouldn't it sound like I was bragging? I ate my meatloaf and green beans and then went into the living room and watched a little television. Or I tried to. I still had the sound of the mower in my ears, so I couldn't hear the television properly. When you listen to something really loud, when you're older, you might go to a concert, like a band or something, they're playing on stage, and your ears ring because it's so loud, and they ring afterwards. So his ears were still ringing a bit from the noise. My whole body was still vibrating from sitting on the mower all day, and after a few minutes, I couldn't keep my eyes open. By 8 o'clock, I was sitting on the couch with my head hanging forward, drool dripping onto my t-shirt, sound asleep. Mum shook me awake and sent me up to bed, where I crashed onto the pillow, still dressed, pockets full of money. end of day 1 with my lawnmower, and that was the easiest day. So, what are the different stages he went through today? Turn and tell your neighbour, see if you can come up with all the different stages in chronological, in time order.